Okay. We're getting a lot of games with white in, which isn't a bad thing. D5. Well, I know what we're going to play. G3. Which makes me happy. So they're going to play this like a Slav, I suppose. If they play e6 before bishop f5, it's like a Slav. If they play bishop f5 and then e6, then it's like a reverse London. And I'm just going to continue with my plans of d3 here. Now when I see this diagonal open, my immediate reaction is I want to play c4. Because if they do something like takes, I can play something like knight d2 and try to take advantage of this long diagonal and make it awkward for them. They don't do that. They want to make sure they oppose the diagonal. I think that's an exceptional plan. I'm hoping to see some sort of like knight c6. Or c5 is a good move, I think. I might take on d5, give them a hanging pawn structure. So yeah, I've been preferring these Benoni positions. Generally, I always call c4 a Benoni position and e4 a King's Indian position. Not sure why, but that's just what I do. That's just how I am and who I am as a person. Will our opponent disconnect? Looks like they're close to disconnecting. Okay. They're back. But again, the reason why I like c4 more than e4 is because we're trying to make this the star of the game. Of course, we can go for our normal positions of like e4 and trying to go for kingshead attack, but I wanted to try switching things up a little bit because I tried that at the start and honestly I wasn't loving my positions. And now that we switched to the knight f3 move order, it feels a little bit more comfortable to go for positions like we're getting in the game. I want to place either bishop g5 or like knight e1. So actually, wait, if we treat this kind of like a Benoni, we might want to actually trade off this bishop. But I want to wait just one move. I'm thinking of some sort of knight e1 to c2. But I think that's not really effective. Should I play e3? I don't hate e3, but again, it kind of begs the question, what am I doing with this bishop here? So I think bishop g5, I'm going to trade off this piece because I'm voluntarily taking less space in this position, and when you have less space, you should be aiming to make some sort of trades. Maybe this is a misunderstanding of the position. Yeah, maybe it's a misunderstanding of the position, but I feel like this is correct. And chess is a very feelings-based game. Alright, let's play knight d2. And now I'm a little happy because, hey, we're threatening to win a pawn. If you can make threats early on, then you should. Hey, I think we win a pawn. Oh, we lose b2. We do lose b2. Do I care? Let's think about it. So if we take bishop takes, or no, take, and then knight takes. The problem for them is they take b2, and then I go knight e7 or knight f6 check, probably knight e7 check, and then I take on b7. And obviously, if they take the bishop immediately, then, well, I attack their rook. They're not in time to take on b2, and that's also good for us. So we're getting to actually we're winning their light squared bishop and making ours unopposed by playing c takes d5 here. So I think we're happy. I think we are happy. And of course, if they play bishop takes, I will happily play knight takes. Because whenever you have a fiend-countered bishop, if you can make sure it's unopposed, it becomes so much stronger for it. And that's a big thing. I also like knight e4 here. Getting rid of their bishop pair, which was one imbalance that wasn't favoring us. And then after that, I'm looking at a move like e4, which is something I've played quite a bit. Whenever we get this extra pawn, it feels like a lot of people around this rating range just give up this extra pawn like this and expect to win it back. But me, I'm a little bit more spoiled. And that kind of makes me want to keep it. For example, I want to play a trick move like knight e4, where if they take it, I have knight f6 check. I think that's a little much, though. We don't need to do that. I could also play d4 or queen b3. Queen b3, probably the best choice. I'm not sure about e4 because they might play c6 and then try to play against my backward d-pawn. And I'm not happy with the backward d-pawn. I want to have a e-pawn that's backwards because, well, their pawn can't attack it. So yeah, let's play queen b3. Defending the pawn like this. If they add another attacker, then I think this move knight e4 might hurt a little bit. Because they cannot take on d5 with the queen. They cannot take with another piece because I believe I can just take. And if they do this, now I can take with the pawn. And this is much better because even though we have doubled e-pawns, they're much less of a target after a move like c6. So I think we can take it, and this actually just helps us. It's still defended, and now we get e4. So now we don't even have double d-pawns. They have a weak e5 pawn, and we can start creating counterplay against the c7 pawn. Not even counterplay, it's just play. We're up a pawn, we have a better bishop than theirs, arguably, because our bishop is defending our extra pawn. I wouldn't say it's the best bishop in the world or anything, just because it is kind of blocked in from the structure, but it's definitely not bad. I don't hate queen f3, because this rook looks a little trapped, yeah? What if I play a simple move like h4? h4 and then queen d1. If I play queen d1 or queen f3 right now, they play rook g5. But if I play h4, their rook has no squares. And this is something we should keep in mind. The mobility of a piece is very important. So right now we're threatening both bishop f3 and queen d1. I prefer queen d1. Alright, so queen h4. And I think they're trying to set up queen f7. But I think this does not fall into d6. It's so close to falling into d6, though. It's kind of insane. Let's go rook c1 and just maintain threats. Right now, I'm threatening moves like d6 and then rook takes c7. Yeah, I like that. So they move out of the way. Do I play queen f3? Because now they have to play queen e8 to defend it. They don't have queen f7 anymore. And I don't care about winning the exchange. I want to try to win the whole rook. I'm a bit of a brat. Is it necessary? There might be bishop f3 now. Bishop f3, no, actually bishop f3 looks really good. Because bishop f3, queen f7, or queen e8, we actually just go queen d1 as well at the end of the day. And just add another attacker to it. And if they ever sacrifice, well, that's just the full piece. So I think I'm going to play bishop f3 here. And I think this should win us probably the full rook, or they'll have to play something really sad like g6. And nobody wants to play g6. Like, my parents would rather remarry than play g6. That's how much it's not really favored here. So let's take it. And I'm actually going to play g4, which is really funny and really dumb looking. But the aim is just to make sure there's no kingside weaknesses. I could have arguably taken back, but I thought this is just a little bit more interesting. Now I want to play queen e3. Threaten to take on h6. It's hard to ever like take this bishop. Ever. They could try like some sort of bishop c8, but I don't really think it will work. Because anytime they try bishop c8, bishop takes g4, I still have f3. So I'm just going to take this guy. It's a good pawn. And if they play bishop c8, I could also take that bishop. I give back in exchange, but I am up a piece, so I would be up a bishop instead of a rook. But by doing that, I can play moves like rook c1, and there's just no counterplay. So this is a way of giving back material to simplify, and I think this is a very acceptable way to do things. Just because, well, the bishop on h5, if we trade everything off, all the major pieces here, the game's over. So rook c6 now. And right now I'm threatening to take on h6. And that's what I mean is the game's already over. So they have to play something like queen f4, which isn't really inspiring. We can take on h6 because we have an x-ray on the pawn. Or here we can take on h6 anyways and follow up with checkmate in like a move or two. Let me see here. What's the fastest mate? Check. So rook g6 check, king f7, queen g7, king e8, and then rook e6 checkmate. So it's a checkmate in 1, 2, 3. And then king e8 and rook to e8. Checkmate. Fascinating. Fascinating. Let's check this out. So one thing I want to know here is c4 correct? It looks correct. Great. One thing that might be necessary here is actually to play c6. This looks a little weird because, well, they just tried to fianchetto their bishop. But getting rid of any potential on this diagonal is very important for opponents. Generally, they want to have a structure like c6. Even castles here is suggested, but generally, I'm a huge believer in playing some sort of c6, and if you want to open the position for your bishop, go for a delayed e5, because if you play again, let's just say knight d2 here or something, and then c6, if you go for e5 instead, well, this bishop's biting on granite, so you're trying to just play against the bishop. Is that the only way to play? No, you can play things like c5 as well here, I believe. Like c6. Or no, castles, sorry, knight d2 and c5. And as we can see, it's a little bit, it's like close to equality. They're going to play moves like knight c6 next. Very, very acceptable position. All right. That's the opening, but we got to check the rest of it. So I was curious about this. Engine actually was okay with it, which is really nice to know. And it did want c takes d5. I was not convinced on that. I wanted to play knight d2 because I wanted to oppose these bishops to make d takes c4 not possible, because we could take on b7. And I was just trying to keep tension in the position because I thought the tension would favor us. So knight to d7, and now we win the pawn. And again, what they could do here is play some sort of e takes, knight takes, and queen takes b2. But the problem with queen takes b2 here is it runs, I believe, into knight e7 check. But maybe they're stronger. So knight e7 check was my first thought here. it's equal material, but our bishop is just, it's a monster if we look at it, right? Like this bishop feels great. But they do have some good play on the side of the board, maybe knight c5. So what the engine is giving here is if they take, we should actually just play like knight c4 and take on d6, which actually makes a lot of sense here. They take on d5, knight f5, and there's actually direct threats of knight e7 check, which is really funny. Queen f6, do we have knight e7 check? Oh no, we just take immediately. There's no point. We don't have to worry about that. Wow. And we win the exchange. That's like very, very concrete though. So I wouldn't really worry about that. But after e5, we are up the pawn. I was really happy about getting knight e4 in, getting rid of their bishop pair. And I was considering e4 here. It doesn't actually pop up at the computer. It's recommending moves like knight b5. e4 again, I would be a little bit worried about some sort of c6, and that's what it's giving. It's not a bad move by any means, but you do have to recognize in the resulting position, if we play c6, what's going to happen is we are going to have a backward pawn on d3. So that's important there. So that's why I play queen b3, is because if c6 or something, we just kind of are permanently up a pawn here, even if we end up trading bishops. So not really a concern. So yeah, knight e4. Then we could take with the pawn. And now we don't really have any major weaknesses. Arguably e2 could be weak, but our opponent kind of solves that problem for us by playing f5. And this greatly helps us because now, well, all that's happened is, if you think about it, this pawn has traded for this pawn, not this pawn. So I think that greatly helps us because that weakens their king further, isolates their e5 pawn, and also gets rid of our weakness on e2. And that's why I went from a 1.5 position to a +2 here. And rook h5 actually makes it just much, much worse. h4 is actually top move, again, because we have threats of moves like bishop f3 and queen d1, because this rook is just on an incorrect square. And I think that covers the game.